Welcome to the day 4 of the video. In today's session, actually, we are going to talk more about the project resources and project cost. While we are talking about the project cost, we have to really understand how the cost components are laid out. Cost components in this sense, like what are the cost components, what consists of the cost. To have a good understanding about the cost, we have to analyze the project breakdown structure. First, we went through the decomposition of the project and we identified different tasks. In any of the tasks, if it incurs some time and resources, of course, there is also a cost associated with that. So in this case, we have to understand the cost can come from the pay rates, because if a task need to be executed, we are consuming the manpower or the labor, as well as we are also consuming materials, raw materials or finished product or some extra stuffs that add on to complete the work. So that's the reason we are considering it requires the rate. What is the labor rate for the resource? We also want to see any equipments or materials that we want. Is there a rental charge associated with that? Sometimes it may not be a time and material kind of arrangement. It depends upon the contract. We are approaching a vendor or a contractor and they are doing the work and completing with fixed amount. So all these characteristics need to be understood thoroughly so that we should able to define what are the cost line item for each the task, and when those can be summed up, we can find out what is the total cost of the project. Then we also want to see, we will do a little bit of analysis of the activity and find out how those cost components are tabulated. We also want to see how the work package is consist of. Sometimes the WBS, when I went through that, I explained the WBS can be grouped if that work is done by a particular contractor. So when we add those all costs together, we should be able to find out how much is plumbing cost, how much the carpentry cost, or in case of our vacation example, we should be able to see what could be the transportation cost. So if the WBS is also broken down into that particular bucket or work packages, then we can easily find out what is the cost breakdown for overall project. What could be the labor, what could be the material, what could be the miscellaneous, what could be the travels and such. Now let's take a look at about how do we estimate cost. In last video, I explained about the time estimation. Because we broke the work into smaller components, we went through line by line and identify how much duration each task is going to take to complete. That's the time duration. Here, the principle of estimation can be same. We are also looking to the cost side. There are a couple of techniques that we can use for estimation. One is called top-down or analogous estimation, which is nothing but a budgetary estimate. For example, let's say I have $5,000 for a vacation, or I have $500 to paint this room. That is the money given to us, and that then we split that, how much of that money I have to utilize for materials, how much money I can spend for cleaning, how much money I can spend for painting such and such. So that approach is called top-down approach. In bottom-up approach is a little bit different. It's exactly the opposite. We find the cost not by breaking down into components, but we went to the grassroots level, we went to the node level and understand. In fact, we asked the person who is doing the job to do the cost estimate, and then we sum up those costs together to find out. That's called bottom-up estimate. In bottom-up estimate, we have to have some granularity of understanding what work is doing. Let's say, for example, we are building a single family house. Initially, we will say, okay, I have to build a single family house with 750K. That is the top down. But in the next level, when we go to the detailed planning, we have all the detailed level of work involved in building a house. We should be able to tabulate how much material, how much labor that costs, and add up that together and come up with a little more detailed estimate, and that is known as bottom-up estimate. Now, 1-point estimate. For anything, either in the time or cost side, if you want to estimate how much is going to take, or how long it's going to take, if it's a 1 point that we can estimate, that number is called 1-point estimate. 3-point estimate is a little more like a statistical model where O is the optimistic, M is most likely, and P is pessimistic. Let's take an example about painting the room. Let's say if I ask somebody how long it's going to take to paint this wall, they may say 2 hours, and another person say 4 hours, and another person say 7 hours. So the minimum amount which we call as 2 is optimistic, and most of the people are estimating that we call as most likely, and the pessimistic is 7. So 7 is here, and 4 is the most of the people estimating, and 6 is the and 4 is the most likely estimates. So we can break that down into that perspective. If you only know the estimate per unit, the unit of raw materials or unit of servers, then that kind of estimation is called parametric estimate, where based upon the unit cost, we should be able to find the total cost of the task or total cost of the activity. Other way of estimating is heuristic estimate. Heuristic estimate is a rule of thumb. It's just could be a random number. It all depends upon who are involved. Normally, in that case, we'll approach an industry expert, those who know the work, and going to put an estimate on that. There are different other definitions of cost. Of course, some of you are finance oriented. You can find out there are fixed cost estimate, which you are asking somebody to give a fixed bid, and let's say for cleaning the room after painting is done, it's $200. That's a fixed cost. Variable cost is basically based upon the hourly rate. So in the last 2 slides, to summarize, it gives us a basic understanding about how we can derive the cost, how we should be able to estimate the cost for the entire project, to know that what exactly we have to understand, and also what are the different ways of getting that estimate. Now, I will take you to the Microsoft project where we left off, and explain these techniques in a little more deeper way. Before I move out of here, I just want to, I'm hoping that you have a good understanding about how the cost estimates work, and how we can find out the total estimate of the cost based upon the definition, and hope this video really help you to understand that. Okay, so we left off yesterday with this session, with this plan, and in this plan we also understood how exactly we can come up with a schedule. So I'm not going to repeat all the steps we have gone to yesterday, but just to do a recap. Once we are done with WBS, once you are done with duration, once you complete the predecessor, the project start date and the auto schedule, what the system is giving you an overall estimate from a time point of view. Now today, how exactly we can incorporate the cost to that? If you look into the cost, I think the easy way to understand that one, let's add a column here called cost. So that is going to show you exactly what are the cost component for each of the line items, or what exactly the system is telling you how much it's going to take. Let's say we have an activity called packing. In that packing, it is not telling actually how much it's going to take, but it's telling 0.5 days. So the question is that if somebody is going to work on this activity and think I'm going to take 4 hours, does it say that it was $0? No. The reason it's showing $0, it's not at consuming any resources. The resource is blank. So the moment we put the resource, it's going to show up certain cost. So before I do that, let me add one more column called fixed cost, because some of our activities may be fixed cost too. Right, so we have cost and we have fixed cost. Now, there is one way we could do the tabulation of cost activity by activity. The best way is that we can go to the resource sheet and enter all the resources who is working on this project. So since in our vacation project, let's say some resource Tom, Shelly, then so that this dad and mom there, and let's say 2 kids, let's say Kim, and also let's say like that. And of course, this is a fun project, so we don't necessarily need to put any standard rate, but for learning how the tool works and how exactly the cost tabulation works, let's put some standard rate for anybody who is spending some time. So let's say any time that Tom is spending any effort on this project, let's say he's going to take $40, let's say $20 per hour, and Sherry is also $20, and kids, let's say, just to get some differentiation, let's say $15 and $15. Okay. Now, whenever we put some resource here, there is a critical column here called resource type. Any resource working in the project can be of these 3 different types. One could be work related, which is most of the resource we added here is work, so it's a standard labor rate, and the time they are spending on the project will be multiplied by this rate to get some cost component. Other could be like material, or it could be cost. So let's try to add few items here. Let's say let's put some packing tape, for example. Material, and we could do some rates here also. Let's $20, and another one we could use cost. Cost is about, let's say, Let's put that for some understanding. So I will show you how these things will work in a second. And now let's come back to here and packing. In the packing, let's say who are the resources working on it. What we could do, we can double click on the task. It will give some detailed information window where you can use the resources, and you can put, like, let's say Tom and Sherry. Okay, Tom is going to do some, is involved, as well as Sherry is also going to involved in packing, and let's say they spent 50% of their allocation on that task. And let's say they use the package material also. Package tape 1 unit is done. So once I put that one, that gives me $100, which means that is equivalent to 4 hours of Tom's work and 4 hours of Sherry's work. That is 8 into 20, if I remember correctly, and 8 into 20, and that is around here is $20 standard rate, $20 standard rate, 50% is working. Sorry, it is only 0.5 days, so it's basically 2 hours, so 4 hours, so 4 into 2, like 80 hours. 80 hours plus the packaging tape 20, that's what this 100 means. So remember, here it's not a 1 day, it's a half day. So half day, 50% is like quarter. So quarter plus quarter is like half day into whatever the half day is, 4 hours. 4 hours into 20 is like 80, and the tabulation goes. So the bottom line here is that for any of the tasks, the moment we assign the resource based upon the duration of the activity and resource involved, along with material, tabulate the cost. In case of hotel, what we could do, and I know I made a flat booking with them, so do not want to worry about my time. Of course, I took some time, so let's say Tom is the one who spent time on it. Maybe I can also say 50% there, so it will not be over allocation there. So Tom booking, okay, Tom made the booking here. So it seems, let's say Tom spent half day for doing all those bookings. So we could copy that. So did that. Along with that, let's say the hotel, I will talk about this red icon here in a second, which you see in the screen, but hold on to that. Don't spend 50% of the time. The hotel cost me around 600, let's say $200, 5 days, like $1,000. And then car, let's say $320, whatever it is. Sightseeing, let's say around, all the packages took like $200, $400, $800, something like that. $800. Okay. So that gives you an idea about how this cost tabulation work. The cost tabulation work based upon the resource who is working, their hourly rate times the hour they spend on the task, plus any kind of fixed cost. So that's what it happened. The total cost, it comes like that. Now there are mistakes, sorry for that, so I should do it here. So let's do 1000, 320, 800. Actually it was a empty column, so let's remove that. We do not need that. We can inside the column. Okay, now it's good. So again, if we take this as an example, Tom is working 50% of 0.5 days, whatever it is. That is again 4 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours 40 plus $800 of the fixed cost. So it all the tabulation goes by that. The cost is equal to the labor rate plus any fixed or material cost that you utilize. So if we keep on adding this, for example, all those line items one by one, how much time they are spending, and for example, let's do that one here also. Let's do like all the unpacking is doing by Sherry, for example. So let's make a little more fun there. Let's change. So Sherry is 50%. It's 5 days. Sherry is going to take supposed to put Sherry there. Let's correct that, no problems. Sherry, Sherry then Tom. Okay, and wrap up. Let's again do Sherry, for example. So that is done, and that will tell us now we have a cost. Remember, if you look into here, it's saying 9.5 days and it's going to cost us $2,740. This can also be seen under project statistic when you do a summary. So what we have learned in today's session is basically how exactly the cost tabulate in a project. First thing, there should be a WBS which break down the project into smaller components, and there's an activity, and each of the activity which consumes the resources and manpower, there's a cost associated. In a time and material mode, we take the labor rate, we take the hours, multiply it, that will give a labor cost. If you're consuming any materials, we will add on to that. If that task is not a labor rate, it's purely a flat rate, then we can put in the fixed cost, so the fixed cost will be calculated as a part of the cost computation for the task. Hopefully that is good enough, and that gave you a good understanding about how the costs work and how the resource work too. Earlier, when we are doing this resource allocation for each of the tasks, for example here in day 1, let's say for reason as let's put all the resources here, Tom, Sherry, Kim, and Dan. Everybody is involved, but let's say there is a cost associated with that too, but it's a vacation thing. So this kind of a glitchy thing, but let's, for the simplicity, let's talk it what that all means. Okay, this all means that their time they spend is equivalent to something. So we can think that's vacation. This is not an equivalent dollar amount, but it's a real project task that will happen. So now what is this red icon shows here? The red icon shows here, if you go to the resource sheet, those resources are overburdened, overloaded. So if you look here, Tom is saying, and there are some Tom's activity, he is doing double duty. For example, here 17th, he is doing 50% in packing. Here doing the hotel reservation, car reservation and everything, they are not sequential. So literally saying on the 17th and 18th, actually 17th, Tom is more overloaded. So while we are allocating the resources, even though we thought the project can be done in 9.5 days, while we are allocating the resource, we will come across a situation where the resource is overloaded. And then we have to do an approach called leveling of resource. We level those resources in such a way that the load for the resource will be distributed evenly, and there is no need for the resource to work overtime. So let's see how that the tool will help us to do that. By a single click here, the tool should able to, for that let me do okay. So I do a level all. Okay. Second. See, this one, resources. Okay. So if you look into this case here, the resource has been over allocated and the Tom is allowed to work on multiple tasks on the same day. So, but if you sequence this properly, then that is going to go away and shift that from 9.5 days, if I remember correctly, to the 10 days. So that shifting will happen, that will level all the resources, and now Tom is no more allowed or no more required to work overtime. So this, by just looking into this one, this project plan, we are satisfied both in the schedule side, there is no overallocation, the resource has been allocated correctly. We also got some amount for the cost equivalent. Of course, we can take out this one as zeros because let's say all the resources in the family members, we should not account for the cost. It's pretty easy. What we have to do is we zero it out, the standard rate, and then it will find out what exactly is going to cost now, because that's only going to take the ticketing cost, transportation cost, and everything. That's one way of doing it. Other way that you could also look into the different outline, and it will also give you a breakdown, preparation, how much it's going to take, and then we can also find out where the cost is coming and what are the cost line items. Hopefully you enjoyed this session, and then that give you a good understanding about the activities and activities mapped to the corresponding cost and where the cost is being computed to and roll up to the total project cost. Thank you.